some of my best learning, some of my best experiences, but also things that have stuck with and have been foundational in the value, in the value system of institutional strengthening. It's rethinking how we organize such sessions outside the formalities. Because one of the challenges that I have seen in organizing that, we as Indigenous people have taken and socialized from a very non-Indigenous way is very workshopy, and we sit and eat together, but everybody retreats into their own room after that. And if you come from a similar space as mine, the most memorable discussions were young children sitting under fire, next to a fire, as the storyteller told stories, sang songs, and so I think as a way of reflection, maybe it's things that we talk about that are not necessarily in a formal setting, that are over cutting onions, and the stories come out of it, that people reflect both on their social, their everyday lives, because personal is political. Our stance as Indigenous organizations is a personal process, but it is also a political process. And how we strengthen our organizations is also a political and personal process. And so trying to reflect on the personal things we do, the way we think about strengthening organizations, the way we think about how organizations are structured, that are not necessarily always meet the expectations of the funders, but we are able to reflect on who we are, why we are who we are, why we do what we do, and how do we not just only fight the system that sometimes squashes us into fitting into a box, but allows us to position ourselves in a way that we can challenge those institutions, we can advocate, and we can advocate with those, we can advocate that those institutions understand where we're coming from. I think it's very critical for us to start to better allow ourselves to engage in these conversations in spaces that allow us to go beyond the formal. Formal is good sometimes, but sometimes the informal spaces where we talk about these things the same way we would do whether you live, you're working in the community and coming into, again, you're in the community and your home is in the community, how you think about organizational strengthening, because your organization is not positioned or stationed in a hotel. It is in the everyday lives, as I said earlier. So a very critical part for us to think about how we do even just our own convenings, how we negotiate, contest, discourse through these processes. And I say this from my own personal experiences, that the best debates, contestations, arguments I have heard that still stick with me, but also have formed and shaped the way my politics is around institutional strengthening, what we think about it, which it's, again, as I said, there is no separation between institution, the organization that's registered, and institution, the community structures that we work with and for. And so seeing it from that perspective has helped me and has enabled me constantly be curious about when people talk about institutional strengthening, when people talk about accompaniment, when people talk about all these things, and even me myself, when I am providing accompaniment in the different spaces that I do, I am constantly curious to understand from the people I'm working with, what does this look like for them? What does it mean for them? And I think for us as Indigenous organizations, as Indigenous leaders in this space, we have got to be curious, but we've also got to want to be, need to be comfortable in uncomfortable spaces, but not be afraid of challenging some of those processes in how, because those become the foundations under which the institutions are strengthened and are strengthened beyond the period of time that there is a process of strengthening, to really strengthening that their foundations are embedded within community values and community negotiations. And not to say that communities are static, but to constantly, that even with the changes that come within communities, that the value systems and even with the changes that come within organizations, that when we leave and a different crop of young people come into these spaces, that the value systems really shape the foundations that they continue to build on, and they build, and the foundations that we have put in place are strong enough and value enough that they can build on.